and welcome to the regular meeting of the Riverhead Planning Board. It is 7:30, and I don't know what date is it now? It is the 16th of May, 2018. Flag salute. Let's see. Councilman? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, by email to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule including the time and date of this meeting. I would like to remind all members of the public we have 3 fire exits, one here, one behind me, and one, of course, the way you walked in. In addition, we are creating a recorded portion of this meeting by both audio and video. And if you need to speak and you want to be heard, you simply come up to the table, state your name. You'll be recorded visually by the camera and, of course, by our microphones. A roll call, please.
Chair Kellyan?
Here.
Ms. Boland? Here. Dr. Gurwitz?
Here.
Mr. Merman?
Here.
Mr. Grosso?
Here.
Mr. Canigo?
Here.
Mr. Gibbons?
Here.
Mr. Sedaris?
Here.
Mr. Townsend is absent. Mayor Mignon?
Mr. Castleman is here. Good evening.
Mayor Mignon is...
Mayor Mignon is excused. Okay. First up, we have, let's go to completeness review first. We have RSM Trading, LLC, for completeness. Good evening, Mr. Soresti. Good evening.
Our office represents RSM, which references this particular application. The application involves a food handler's license requirement, which under our ordinance requires site plan approval. Additionally, the second part of the application is for outdoor seating, seasonal seating. What the applicant is proposing is an area that measures approximately 345 square feet. I think it's about 13 by 25. And this will be situated on the west side of the building. Will be on the west side of the building on the Kinderman Road area. The restaurant itself had 123 seats, which was acquired by the client back in the fall of 2017. So we're not increasing the seating capacity of the restaurant. We are doing like a reallocation where we're having about 70 seats on the main level and approximately 50 seats downstairs. So the downstairs is currently unimproved, but what we seek to do is improve it and just reallocate the seating. Right now we have 123 seats right on the first floor level. So that
so no additional seating?
No additional seating, so there's no additional parking requirement. The site itself is difficult because we only have approximately, I would say, 10 parking spaces on the site. There is an area behind, along the easterly boundary line. There's 11 additional cars, but those cars are actually on someone else's property. Actually, Gary, his last name, Gary Gorsuch. I just got his last name.
Good evening, Mr. Gorsuch.
Those 11 seats, there's a shared parking arrangement between the landlord of our building and Gary, where they share those 11 spaces. So that, essentially there's no expansion of the existing use. We're staying with the existing use so that there's no expansion of it. Basically, we're seeking to have an area in the lower level improved so that we can reallocate the seating and also provide some seasonal seating on the outside of the area, roughly 345 square feet. The property is improved. It actually is a non-conforming aspect of the property. It's about 90% covered between the building. The building has about a 3,000 square foot footprint, so that 3,000 square feet plus the rest of it is covered with bituminous paving, so that there's only about 10% of the total area of the property, which is 12,500 square feet, is greenery. But we reviewed Rob Costa's plan, so I think we could work with it. And if the board were to look favorably on the outdoor seating aspect of it, which it complies with the ordinance provides that you can have 15% of the interior seating dedicated to outdoor seating. So that would translate into about 18 seats. And then they have to be, tables of 2. I know there was an issue with reference to putting bollards and landscaping, and the client would work with the engineer and the planner to, make sure that we would comply with Edinburgh bonds in that respect to protect the public.
For the sake of it just being complete, are there any questions from the board? What about, I'm sorry, as far as completeness goes?
Based on the nature of the application, I think there's enough information sufficient for the application.
Anything from the right side?
Completeness? No. I'll make a motion that,
Anything from the left side?
no, sorry.
We have a big board here tonight. Now I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we deem the applicant complete.
Do you have a second? Second. Councilman? Roll call, please.
Mr. Erekilian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Dr. Gerowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Councilman Canigo?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
Mrs. Sedaris?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes. Okay,
I do have the
You know what I mean?
certifications.
we'll get that
We'll get that.
during the regular meeting.
I vote yes.
Did I
Thank you
miss
so much. On this application,
Mr. Craig, sorry about that. Excuse me.
Yep. Okay, so one of our alternates is a restaurant owner in town. I've spoken to him, and I think it might be wise for him to recuse himself on this particular application. He has outdoor seating as well.
That would be Mrs. Sedaris?
Mrs. Sedaris. You agree?
I agree. You're not within 200 feet, correct?
No.
Okay. He's not necessarily conflicted under the municipal land use law. He's not a property owner within 200 feet. You don't have a personal interest in this application, do you? You're not standing to gain financially?
No.
Then you can stay.
He can stay.
Okay, then you can stay with us.
Mr. Chairman, while we're doing disclosures here, I have a disclosure with Mr. Seresti that I have performed professional services for his clients over the years, but the fees were directly paid by his clients.
So you were not engaged by Mrs. Seresti, but rather
As far
by
as I
his
know.
clients?
But they weren't satisfied with his services, if that helps.
I don't see a conflict.
Okay, but I have to put it on the record.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I should say anything. I haven't
Brian's
used
been
Mr. Trustee services.
trying to find the house for me.
Well, technically, we're not exactly in business. My mother is helping the trustees purchase and sell property.
Presently? Present?
Looking, he was still looking.
It might make sense for Mr. Gibbons to not participate in this application.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Seresti is obviously very popular with the Borough of River Edge. All right, thank you, Sam. We'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.
Next up, New York Market has already been complete. Is that correct? We've decided on that?
We did. in
Okay,
December.
so you're on, do not have to come up with that. And we will go to the memorializations. First memorialization up is MCG Realty, 620 Kinderkmack Road, Block 617, Lot 17. Mr. Gorsuch, good evening. I'm going to just ask Mr. Gorsuch to come up for a second because one of the members had a quick question. And still under oath from the last time? Or?
You remain under oath, and he's really going to testify. Sir, you're still under oath to the extent that you give any testimony this evening.
Michael?
Yes, one quick question about the parking. I wasn't here unfortunately during the last meeting.
Just speak up, Barnes.
Yeah, the calculations for parking don't have any parking spots provided for the pizza kitchen.
They are included. They are included in the restaurant. They're included as well with the pizza place.
So the 114 seats are the pizza
Yeah.
place
including-
and the
well,
restaurant?
The pizza has no seating.
Well, I understand the pizza has no seating, but there are,
But he did calculate the square footage in with that.
right,
That's
but,
correct.
because but it's saying there no parking is provided within the calculation, but the 4 spots that are in front of the pizza place have signs that say parking for the pizza place only. So are those coming out of the 43?
They are part of the total square, look, again, I can't answer completely what the architect did, but I know he did incorporate the pizza.
So I think the issue here is, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, that if you exclude that parking for anybody other than the pizza kitchen,
Right,
then the plan that you came in with the inclusion of those spaces
right.
was not accurate. So what you may need to do, and I'll probably advise you to do that, is take those signs out.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Well, actually, you would ask me to put the mayor did to put one of the handicap spots up there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So just take the signs down and
So just
just
take the
have
signs
all
down.
inclusive parking.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, you can go back. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good, Michael? Yep. Okay.
Mr. Barron?
Just, I think it was on page 6, item number 16, referring to 55 total spaces. And I wasn't sure what the final outcome was. I thought it was 43, which included 12 shared.
Perhaps we can have Mr. Gorski come back.
Still on the road, right?
Hasn't changed. When your attorney was here on the evening of the hearing, it was my understanding that a total of 55 parking spaces are being provided. 15 of those spaces will be basically leased to you. You will enter into a license agreement with the 2 adjacent
Right,
property
exactly.
owners.
Correct.
So it was my understanding it was 12 and 3 for a total of 15.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And so, in terms of the quantity of spaces, is it 55 in total?
I don't believe so. I don't want to answer that. I mean, I could call my architect and ask him. You want me to do that and just ask?
Why don't you
I
do
don't wanna
that,
say
and
the
we'll
wrong
call you
thing.
back up.
Okay.
Because Mr. Barron's had a question, and we are just trying to figure out which one is correct in
So
terms
you
of
want to
the number
know
of
if it's
spaces.
a total of 55?
55 or 43 seem to be the two numbers. Because if it says 55 down the road, you don't have 55.
Okay.
Right.
Well, item 4 says you've got 43 provided and 12 leased.
I believe that was my recollection.
Right. I
So-
think
That's what
so,
item
too.
4
Right, wasn't that on the plans, on the architect's site plan? I believe that. I think you're right. But I don't want to answer that until
Why don't
let me
you
give you a
step
call.
outside,
Okay.
and we'll call up,
Okay.
ILBJ. This is also for memorialization. ILBJ LLC, 355 Johnson Avenue, block 1405, lot 3, major subplan, site plan, and new construction. Everybody should have received this over the weekend. I sent that an email. Anybody have any comments?
I did have an opportunity to speak to Mr. Barron. He did have some suggested revisions to the resolution, and if this board is inclined, would be my recommendation, if you accept his revisions, to amend the resolution on the floor before it's formally adopted. Mr. Barron?
So these were very minor things that I picked up on. Page 15, item 63B, just clarifying the size of the loading space. I believe it was 10 by 18 on the final rendering. Not a major issue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Barron?
Page 15, right.
63?
63B, the size of the loading space, I think was 10 by 18.
10 by 18?
And with regard to the zoning table on page 14, you got all the variances correct. I think the board differentiated, though, the setbacks of the building itself versus the parking structure, and so to indicate separately the setbacks of the parking structure, for which relief, I believe, was also granted, given that they were connected constituted one building tenant.
So perhaps, Mr. Behrens, you could help me add another column to this chart. It doesn't have to be right now
Yeah.
to add that additional relief, or describe that additional relief.
Sure, I have that.
And I don't see it attached, but we're incorporating both the engineer and the planner's report. And they'll comply to that, correct?
That is correct.
I'll start on the left side. Anybody? Questions? How about on the right side? Mr. Sedaris, Gibbons, any questions? Okay.
Chair Killian, two quick items. At page 18, item number 17, condition of approval for the applicant to comply with the annual comments and recommendations as contained in the reports of Mr. Behrens and Mr. Costa. Does the board still want the reports to be attached?
No, it's in there, so,
Okay.
you know, what has to be done.
And the second item is, in a rush to get this out on Friday of last week, my secretary did not change the vote chart. Brought my notes with me this evening. The vote was 3-2. According to my records, Dr. Burris voted no, Mr. Grasso voted no, Mayor Mignon, Mr. Caslin, and you voted yes.
Correct.
So the vote chart is incorrect.
Okay, so you'll make that fix.
We'll make that modification.
Okay. A motion from the board to approve the memorialization? Second? Second.
I'm sorry, it was moved by
Mike,
Mr. Craig.
and second by Mr. Castle, am I correct? By Mr. Sedaris, okay?
Mr. Sedaris, just a second.
On a roll call, please.
Well, we had 3 members that were here. We had, council, you may want to weigh on this as well. We had Mayor Mignon, Mr. Caslin, and Sherry Killian were the only 3 members that were eligible to vote and voted in favor of this application. So they would be the only 3 members that would be eligible to memorialize this resolution.
So we have 2 here,
We have 2 of them here,
so it's necessary at this point.
okay? I just wanted to put that on the record. So, you understand that we
Yes, I
have
do.
this
Mhm,
three?
yep.
So we need a motion from one of the 3.
All right, so I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Castle? And a roll call.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Chair Killian?
Yes.
Thank you so very much. I think you're all going to be proud of me. Thank you so much.
So first,
And the reason I'm standing up is I can't find my hearing aids. I can't hear anything.
Always a pleasure, sir.
It was a pleasure.
2 fingers of scotch.
That'll solve it. How do you do it?
Mr. Gorsuch, you want to come up? Get this done?
That was clarification, right? I just want to, for clarification, it's a majority of the people that voted yes have to memorialize, not the majority of people present for the vote.
Correct.
I misunderstood. I thought it was, you have to have a majority of the people that were present to vote. So I thought all 3 would have to vote yes. I misunderstood.
Majority.
Okay, I did get a hold of him. He said in his grid on the site plan, it does indicate Sanducci's with restaurant for the 114 spaces. So it indicates the restaurant and the pizza place. And if you look in the resolution on page 5, it says that also. It says under off-street parking requirement use, Sanducci/pizza. So he did indicate that on the site plan.
So those numbers as contained at paragraph 13, page 5 of the resolution are correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and there's a total of 43 parking spots. That includes the 12 that are under, the 15 that are under the licensing agreements.
So that's how I arrived at the 55 board members. I referred to the plan that showed 40, and I added the 15 spaces that are being licensed, for a
Okay.
total of 55.
Mhm.
And I just want to make sure that that is correct, because that's what I have reflected in my notes.
Well, I believe the 43 include the 15 spaces that are licensed.
Yeah, what?
That was my recollection.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So what I'm going to recommend, board members, is that I just make that very clear, and I spell that out in the body of the resolution. So we amend that on the floor
Okay.
to include that.
Right, so just that needs to be addressed. And like you said, in the site plan, it included Sanducci's and with pizza establishment.
So you just take down the signs.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, have a good night.
Okay, so as amended, the other members that can,
Don't have to vote start on this in June.
all right, so let's do it either way. Those that were here to approve this application, please raise your hand.
I don't remember, right? On the board, I don't think I was.
I know, I think that you were here watching, but I don't think you were able
Right,
to
I wasn't on the board.
All right, so you got everybody?
No.
Okay, please raise your hands again.
All right, so I have Mr. Gibbons, Mr. Sudaris, Dr. Gurwitz, Mr. Caslin, Chair Killian, and Mr. Grasso.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve this memorialization? Yes. Mr. Gibbons? Let's see, 1, 2, yep, okay. I had to make sure that I had enough room for you, but I do. I'm missing 2 people. Okay, 2? 1, I'm missing 1, but for that application, you're fine. Okay.
Second?
Do I have a second? Mr. Gurwitz? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
Mrs. Sudaris?
Yes.
Dr. Gurwitz?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Chair Killian?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes. I've marked both of these with an X at the end of the meeting. Come on over and sign, please. Do you want to pass it down? All right. The easy part is over. So now we are going to go, let's see.
Counsel, does it matter that the vote is not accurate in here when I signed it?
It does. What I would recommend is that I revise that sheet and I send it, I just leave it back out.
Okay.
So that was.
All right, then leave it. Just sign the other one. ILBJ, you can sign it. All right, I'm gonna bring them up first, because they're carried. So I'm gonna bring New York Market up first. Mr. Barrett, good evening.
I'm accompanied by Mr. Anderson again, who is the landlord attorney.
Good evening, welcome again.
With us the last time. We've had ample time to review Mr. Costa's comments, we came so early. Don't know why that has to be, but it is. Would you like to review them, Mr. Chairman, or
I'm sorry?
would you like us to review them?
Yes, let me find my copy.
Okay.
Nope, I didn't even have a copy of the Costas report.
On RSN?
Because I didn't, no, not RSN, this
New York
is
Market.
New York Market. RSN I have, because I need those copies.
I just got this today. Printed out at home, I didn't have time to save it. Would you like to share?
Yeah, just, we'll share.
Oh, look, that's it.
Perfect. Does anybody else have
Oh, wait.
copies of this one?
I have one, so you can share.
Okay.
And this is separate.
You guys, all right, so pass that down, they can share that.
I only have one.
Oh,
Can we make a
nope,
copy?
bring it back. Nope. You'll have to, he'll read it off.
No, there was something else in the pictures.
This is RSM, this is not.
Nope, I don't have it. That's all that was sent to me.
So this is it?
That's it.
Okay. Yes, we can go off Mr. Costa's 5 o'clock report.
Okay. So it appears that he wants shown on the plan itself the areas that are going to be paved or restored. This is first bullet point. So that'll have to be done. We can skip down to the handicap parking spaces. Is Rob coming tonight or not?
He is.
Okay, because this is our engineer, Sean McClellan. If you want to swear him in, and we can
Yeah, we have our planner here too, he can,
qualify him. Because the grade in the parking lot is greater than 2%. So
we'll take that as
How to resolve
his word.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
No, but we have to figure out how to resolve it then. Because I don't think anyone would expect that the elevation of the parking lot is going to be changed.
Pre-existing condition.
Right, I understand that. Mhm. Okay.
So in any event, we can add the dimensions and the van accessible striping. That's not a big deal. We show 2 handicap spaces in the back, and I'm not sure what information he wanted regarding those.
I guess the question I would have is, why are they in the back? Who uses those in the back?
Well, it turns out at one time there is an entrance there, but it's not currently used as an entrance for patrons. So we'll probably have to relocate those to the front
Mm-hmm.
in light of that. As far as the striping not being addressed, if you looked at note 12 on the plan, it says that the striping is going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, I guess we just need to show the dimensions of the garbage enclosures at the rear. There's one for the former carousel, and it really depends, I'm speaking out of turn perhaps, but it really depends on who the new tenant is as to whether or not they'll even have a dumpster. So that's why it says, possible dumpster there.
Mm-hmm.
Carousel they're in a transition with that space. Carousel is
I saw
currently
that.
out,
Mhm.
so we don't know who's going to be in there in the future, so we're, to the best of our ability, we don't know what we're going to need, depending on the occupancy of that space.
Of course, you do know if it's another food operation, they still have to come back to the board.
Yes.
Okay.
So it would seem to me that we really can't propose anything at this point. That would probably be the point when it could be addressed as to what the size of that particular enclosure would be.
Mhm. I agree.
And then we can just sketch in, even though it's shown on the plan, the one for the Turkish restaurant, there's just no dimensions on it. So I assume that's what Mr. Costa is looking for.
Okay.
And we can do that. That's not a big deal. The first item on the second page, I guess that they weren't there recently, because it says that the cargo and disposal material are still on site, and they've been removed for some time now.
Okay.
I think anybody who's been there has observed that. And then I'll defer to Sean about the new elevation and stormwater inlet that they want shown.
You sworn in?
I guess you should be.
Mr. McClellan, please state your name for the record.
Sean McCullen?
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And who are you employed by, sir?
Lance Helm, Kearns and Associates?
And your business address?
It's 101 West Street in Hilltop.
Mr. Lantelmi, I'm sorry, Mr. McClellan has testified before other boards that I represent. It's my recommendation that this board recognize and accept him as a licensed professional engineer of the state of New Jersey.
Members?
Okay.
Your
So be it.
Your license is still in good standing?
You know your license number offhand?
I do.
Let's hear it.
4519.
Attaboy.
Just in reference to the sidewalk, we're going to be replacing the sidewalk on the along Monroe Avenue, so we'll provide elevations. It's going to pretty much be in line with what exists there. And one of the things he's asking for is show the inlet on the other side of Monroe Avenue. We show one here and also at the corner, so we'll provide the inlet on the other side of Monroe.
And just for purposes of the record, you just testified as to a plan. Identify the date of that plan and any revision date,
Sure, it's dated May 2nd, 2018.
and that was prepared by your office?
Yes, it was.
And was that prepared either by you or under your direction?
Oh, myself, yes.
And you said May 2nd, 2018, no revision date?
No worries.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, the drop curve along Monroe Ave,
Yes, all the
I think just for the record, I counted a total of
What he was talking about. Costa's got to clarify.
And we're proposing to keep that one along.
See it? No. It's on the
I
other
think,
page.
sorry for jumping in. One of the notable changes on the plans too is the removal of the car corral
Right, that
in
was,
front of the building.
I skipped over that, because it said it was addressed.
Okay, I just want to make the board aware that that was a change.
So that's being addressed?
No, it said that we addressed it, because it's shown on the plan as being removed.
Okay. Sorry, my hearing is
You and Frank?
Yep.
DeVito?
not quite that bad.
It happens as we mature.
Yeah.
And then, yes, we've agreed that we're going to have the sanitary sewer TB inspected and the storm sewer, and if it needs repairs, it needs repairs. So that'll be done. So that certainly could be a condition of approval if the board sees fit, subject to that. And then, you may have noticed also the trees are in along Kinder Canal.
Landlord planted 7, I understand, pretty nice
I did
trees.
not see that.
along Kinder Canal.
I guess my eyes were trained on the missing boxes I went by and didn't notice the trees. Very
Yeah, and
good.
then they have the green thing around the bottom, whatever that's for. Not big.
And they're in the process of completing the landscape. I think there's
There's some flowers now.
some blocks that are going to go around it. We're cleaning it up, but the trees are in.
Love when new businesses come to town. All right, so where are we here?
So we just have some minor revisions to the plan. And we're going to relocate the handicap spaces. Now, even relocating, we won't lose any spaces as a result.
I believe we won't, maximum we will lose one, because we have some extra striping, but I believe we might be able to pick one of those up from the rear side. The worst case would be one space.
Minimally, we'll have 104, optimally 105. And
Vans.
yes. Well, the most offensive ones have been removed, as you probably have noticed.
That I have not noticed.
Oh, yeah, the ones with the graffiti and all?
I haven't noticed that they were gone.
They're not there.
As of Sunday, it was there. Because I went through there Sunday to pick up a card at the card shop.
That was just there, and
And New York plates.
And we do have a problem, though. And it's your ordinance, it's the problem. The ordinance permits the parking of the vans. We've had this discussion. If you look at section 416-42, it reads, in all non-residential zoning districts, vehicles with commercial plates and other business vehicles shall not be parked between 1 to 6 a.m. except in an enclosed garage or in off-street parking facilities which are located in the non-residential zoning district.
So I guess the definition of an off-street parking facility would be the question. that would be necessarily considered an off-parking.
Well, it wouldn't say garage and off-street parking. It would-
I didn't write the ordinance,
No,
I'm just.
nor I.
Mhm.
But it wouldn't make sense then, that you couldn't use a parking lot.
I'm gonna equate it to the ordinance that you can't block the sidewalk when you're loading on the loading zone, even though the loading zone backs up to the sidewalk. Kind of a little bit ambiguous, but it wasn't something that we were prepared to address tonight.
So you're saying that between 1 AM and 6 AM, you don't want the vans there?
I don't want the vans there at all, unless they're actively picking up and dropping off and.
Right.
We shouldn't be taking a commercial district and making it into a parking lot.
Absolutely, no, unless they're using the business, I agree with you. And I'm sure my client does as well, that it's all.
I understand it's an inconvenience, because it's very convenient to take all your trucks where you can't park anyplace else and say, hey, let's throw them over in River Edge for the night. But we also have residents that abut that parking area there. I've gotten numerous complaints over the years, even though I'm not even on the council, I still get the emails. It's something that I think is an eyesore. I don't think it's proper, and I think that we've kind of been very lenient in some other issues with that building in the market, where I think that the suggestion that they not be there would probably be something that you would want to take.
Okay.
So it's an agreement then, that the vans will not be there unless they're picking up and dropping off.
Right, if they're using the business, other than that, no, they won't be stored.
Is everybody okay with that?
So the vans will not be stored on site
On the
overnight?
property, correct.
Does that mean not stored after business hours?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
because
right.
they're not
Just make sure.
Listen, I don't want to take her business away where she can't deliver stuff, if she's going to deliver stuff.
Right.
Park it, load it, take it away. If the store is closed, and we need to talk about hours, if the store is closed, then they're gone. Perfect.
Question for
Yes,
legal.
Doc.
With legal's discussion of the ordinance, is it enforceable to require them to move their van per se? They could say that the van that's parked on that parking lot is not their van, but the ordinance indicates that you're allowed to park a commercial vehicle off-street, which that is interpreted.
Right,
So I'm just wondering about enforcement.
Without testifying, I'll tell you that a non-tenant parking his vehicle there would be in violation of
I'm saying
our ordinance.
a tenant,
Mhm.
another tenant of the strip could leave their commercial van there, correct? And it is,
So then let's get this verbal agreement with the
that's what,
attorney for the property owner.
that's what I'm thinking, I
So
don't
we
want to
don't
just
have
do
to-
New York market. I think
Mhm.
we want to make no commercial vehicles parked there overnight.
It's a good point. Counselor?
No problem.
Okay.
So no vehicles will be stored overnight after.
Between 1 and 5, it sounds like it would be in contradiction to the ordinance anyway. So
after-
we want to comply with all ordinances.
But it's understood that this is also voluntary. You've agreed voluntarily to ban overnight parking for vehicles. Is that correct?
Let me take a look. I mean, the ordinance suggests it's not permitted anyway.
The ordinance seems a little ambiguous, so we're just gonna take care of it right here, and we'll include it in our resolution.
So the resolution will reflect that the attorney for the landlord was present and agreed to that condition.
That's correct. Okay. The other thing that wasn't addressed in Mr. Costa's, I don't know if it was addressed by Mr. Barron's, is the rear fence facing the property owners in the back.
My client supposedly had his fence guy come out and made whatever repairs were necessary to bring it back.
Maybe a little paint, clean it up a little bit.
I can relay that to him.
That would be wonderful.
Is that a condition or is that just a suggestion?
No, I think that's a suggestion. I think more than likely, you're gonna be back here
Stockade,
again.
right?
in
It's a wooden stockade.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
And I understand there were certain missing pieces that were all, should be all repaired.
Okay, we want to be good neighbors for the people behind us. And, you know, and that, painting the fence would probably be a nice upgrade for the people behind.
I mentioned it before, but-
Now, this goes back a long time, because we started here a long time ago, for no one's fault, that we're been here a few months. One of the things that my client wanted to do was to replace the sign, and it would be in full conformity with the board's 1994 resolution granting comprehensive sign approval. So it will be the noted size from that resolution.
Backlit the same way as what's up there, or
Yes, I have a,
you have enough for everybody?
I don't, unfortunately.
If we included a resolution for signs tonight, without it being on the notice, would that? Because usually,
It was part of the application, no, it's
What was
a
it?
conforming sign. It doesn't mean, I'm sorry.
Mr.
That's all
Barrett,
right.
you referenced the 1994 resolution. Do you
Yes.
happen to have that with you?
I do.
Thank you.
So
As
you're
long as
gonna,
it's in the prior resolution, you're going to comply.
Can I see that?
okay.
Well, it's a sign that's, if it's, follows the ordinance, there's no
So in
variance
other
or
words,
anything
you're just
required.
filling in
You
what
just
was
get a permit.
there.
I remember that. There was quite a bit of discussion on those signs.
Yeah, you were the chairman then, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
He still is.
No.
He just whacks me when I.
Yeah.
May I keep this, or do you need it?
No.
Wonderful, thank
So,
you.
whatever we
Want to pass it around?
approved in 1994, you believe,
Yes.
is, you're going to adhere to that?
That's correct.
Wonderful.
It says, I'll tell you in a moment, that, I just want to be shot right. In any event,
It goes way back.
2.5 feet by 16 feet or 40 square feet.
All right.
For this particular sign.
So that's condition C, 6C,
If you look at page,
page 3,
right, B,
B, okay.
because we succeeded,
Shop right?
we're shop right.
Got it, okay.
Okay. And lastly, we talked about the garbage enclosures. They did a great job in screening them. They redid that a little bit. I'm just going to ask the owner to be a little bit more diligent as far as to make sure that they're closed. Because when I've driven back there a few times, they've always been open. What happens is the birds go in there, take the food out, they drop half of it, and then you know what that
You
creates.
mean the actual dumpster itself?
Yeah, the dumpsters themselves.
Not the enclosures?
Mm-hmm. No, the dumpsters.
Just so we're clear,
They've been
right.
doing a great job keeping the enclosures closed. Ah, good evening, Mr. Costa, nice to see you.
Chairman, good evening.
Let it be known that Mr. Costa is 8:15. We're hearing New York Market, Mr. Costa.
Yes.
I know you had done a report that you received, I guess, around 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Was it 5 or 5?
It was maybe 5:15. But fortunately, we were able to make a few copies. So you can join us. We went through just about everything that was on your list. They've offered to comply with just about everything. The one question that came up was on the parking lot and the
Grade.
the grade.
Right.
And obviously, I don't think we're going to try to make them regrade the parking lot. Is that
The only,
correct?
yeah, the only issue is where the ADA compliant spaces, handicap spaces, the maximum is 2% in each direction. So you cannot put them there unless the grade is actually 2%. So it's not something that the board should even waive. So they either have to be put in a different location, or you'd have to make that, you'd have to alter the grade to make it work.
Right, so we'll put them in a different location, and, Mr. McClellan will do that and then submit it to Mr. Costa, if that's acceptable.
Mr. Costa, they also testified that the trees have been replaced.
They have to.
And they also testified that the boxes were removed, which I verified they are. We're talking about the enclosures now for the garbage. They rescreened, and I thought it looked very, they did a nice job. The only thing I requested is they be more diligent in making sure the tops are closed.
I think the only other question was, there was a portion, it just said portion of resurfacing on the plan with just an arrow, but there was no highlighted.
Right, we're gonna do that.
But what, I'm not sure exactly, when you say you're gonna do it, what does that mean?
Gonna show it on the plan as to the portions that are going to be repaired.
Is there a question on the sidewalk?
The sidewalk is showed, I think, 5-inch or 4-inch, which if you put it on the side where the loading is, obviously that's not big enough, it'll crack.
Was it the extent of replacement,
No, the question was,
the thickness?
bear with me.
There's a note on the plan in the rear portion,
Right.
Where it says block 614. And you just see, it just says portion to be resurfaced with an arrow, but doesn't give a square footage, it doesn't, very vague what it means.
Are you talking about the parking area now?
Originally, we had this area to be resurfaced, and then I decided to remove that, it was actually more scope. And we put a note on the plan that we're going to do the staging, so I'm going to cut
Hang on now.
based on where I need to, but eventually we're going to do the entire parking lot.
Yep.
Just going to do the stages, right?
In stages, correct.
Yeah, so the entire parking lot will be resurfaced in stages. Originally, the plan had us just doing the rear back here first, but this was the worst part on the report. I took off. When you say stages, that is, it won't be done all at one time. Well, stage 1 could be on Monday, stage 2 on Tuesday.
Well, why don't we make a proposal?
That's what I'm saying.
Again, subject to Mr. Costa's approval, if that's acceptable to the board.
We probably wish the Saddle River Planning Board meeting would have went just a couple minutes longer. I think, again, just clarity in front of the board. What does that mean? You know, we say stages, how long?
All right, so that's what we'll do a proposal.
And again, where the loading docks are, just the thickness of the concrete, so we could show you the 4 or 5 inches, which I don't think is thick enough. You're gonna have, obviously, truck loading over the driveways, minimum 8 inches. I think we revised the plan. We'll do that.
Okay. And obviously, when we talked about painting the fence, you're going to have to get the neighbor's permission to go to the other side, but just make sure that they do that. So I'm sure that won't be withheld.
What color is it now? Just natural wood?
Yeah. I
Is
believe
it
so.
fading? Is that the issue?
It's just dirty, really dirty, old. I mean, if they wanted to replace the pickets and just leave them, they could do that. But if, I thought painting might be a cheaper way to go around it.
Less expensive.
Less expensive, but it's your
I'm fine with
choice.
it.
I'm good with whatever.
Right.
Coloring, maybe a nice, shade of brown or something like that, but we'll leave it up to, I'm sure what would be probably the right thing to do is talk to the neighbors and see what they would like. I think they'd see that as a goodwill gesture.
Right, I spoke to my client as well, the clothing den should be gone.
They are gone.
Okay.
Okay, it's timing on some of the stuff, like the corral. You have a timing on that, when that's going to be removed, and those carts will wind up inside?
What's reasonable?
How about at the time of,
Prior to paving, obviously.
how about prior to memorialization? Probably have about 4 or 6 weeks before we memorialize this.
Sure.
So
Correct.
they're talking about that, where the carts currently are, that the removal? We'll bring it to the end of June.
Probably mid-June. I think the 6th is the first meeting, so whatever, like I said, another 14th to the 6th, so it'd be the 20th.
20th, okay. So June 20th.
Okay.
We'll get it underway.
Mr. Costa, you'll do the drive-by and verify that that has been rectified?
probably pull a building permit, I would imagine, for that, so.
Okay.
Building department, make sure, but again, I don't know if there's gonna be, if it doesn't happen, what is the,
Memorial dies. Or if you feel that the building department, if you feel that the building department was the holdup in issuing the permit, so they could do this, if they have to do it that way, then you'll testify that, and we'll give them a little bit more time. But, I mean, moving the carts inside could be done tomorrow. Yeah.
You're talking about the removal of the dock of the corral.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to the issue of the memorialization of the resolution. I think you'd be better served setting the condition of the approval at a certain time frame in the resolution.
Okay.
I have it as a condition, but what happens if the applicant doesn't comply?
You revoke the CO. So,
Does the applicant need any other permits in order to pave and do any other work on site?
technically, probably not. We would normally, do a small agreement or some bonding to make sure they do it. That would be the only. It seems like when there's a surety bond, people do what they're supposed to do. Not all the time, but for the good majority of the time they would.
My only concern is revocation of a permit, revocation of the CO.
I don't think we're gonna get there. It appears that, we're getting some great cooperation from the new tenant and from the landlord's attorney. So I'm not really concerned about that. So let's see where we are during the resolution, and we'll just leave it as is, and we'll take it on their word through the testimony that they've given on the road.
Here's the only issue. If it goes for a building permit, it has to go to zoning. They have 45 days to issue a permit. So more than likely, you're not gonna get a permit issued that quickly.
All right.
I'm being realistic.
Mhm.
I don't see it being issued and then the applicant having the time.
Well, let's get the carts moved inside, and then we'll deal with the other as we go. And we'll just leave it up to Mr. Costa to follow up. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Mr. Costa, is that good for you?
Whatever you want, Chairman. Your wish is my command.
You know what I want? No, okay. All right, anybody, let's go to the left side. Councilman, you got anything?
No questions. Has any thought been given, now that the corral is going to be removed and the carts are going to be inside, as far as any employee or how it's going to be managed when a customer of the store goes to their car and unloads their purchases? That the cart, we're going to ensure the cart is going to get back in the building? Is you're going to have an employee out there?
Well, the only words tonight is Will. So,
Well, your client has to step forward and be sworn.
yeah.
I like the 25-cent thing.
Nobody has any money anymore.
Swipe.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your name for the record. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Rowe.
So the question was, do you have an employee who monitor the carts and bring them in?
Yes, we will have two employees working on the parking lot to collect the cars that the customer left on the parking lot to return to inside the store.
Right, a little concerned, especially the parking spaces that are closest to the building. If someone left a cart there and they just turned it so it wouldn't move, the cart rolled down onto Kindermack.
We'll have two employees.
I will
They
say
have other things.
they do a good job keeping them out of the parking lot. Very rare do I see a cart in that parking lot. I see them in the corral, but they do a very good job of removing them from the parking lot.
And I think if there ever was an issue, I think I've seen signs where they have new type of carts that have some type of electronic brake. If the cart goes past the parking lot, it automatically stops. Might be something to consider. There's those signs where it says if this card is removed from the parking lot, it's an automatic break, it's because it senses what the perimeter is, so it won't let you take the card.
Like having a doorbell, like that.
Sort of, like, type of thing.
It won't move. I've encountered that.
Right, it's a lock, so
Well, yeah, whatever it is, you try.
right, so it's good, so it actually, if that was set up around the perimeter, the car could never enter Kindercomack Road, so.
Right.
Because this is thinking it's very steep where the spaces are.
I
in
think
front
the
of building.
employee is gonna wind up being cheaper, less expensive,
Yes.
yeah. Anybody on the right, I'm sorry, are you done?
Yes, I am.
Anybody on the right side?
I got a question.
Uh-oh.
They recognize that I missed a couple of these meetings. On Monroe Avenue, the drop curb, does that go from pretty much from the whole length of, Monroe?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so, all right, so in other words, whatever sidewalk you have there is getting pulled out, it's becoming drop curb all the way down.
Yeah, we're replacing everything.
Okay.
Where there's not drop curb, there will be drop curb, where there's drop curb, where there is.
Right, because you're loading on the side of the building, so you need, okay, got it.
Is that it?
Yeah. I mean, you answered all my other questions.
Michael? Chris?
Question for the engineer, the location of the stop sign on the exit drive onto Monroe, given the location of that and the parking stall next to it, is there a site issue with seeing that stop sign? Because I noticed where you're replacing the concrete apron, you've got an arrow pointing out. And I know from personal experience, people tend to dart out of there without stopping.
They will anyway.
Perhaps consideration might be given to replacing that arrow on the ground there with a stop bar.
That's a very good idea.
It is stop.
Very good suggestion. Doc?
Question on the fencing or the gates on the dumpster area. When they swing out, they'll be impeding traffic if they're not closed. Are those automatic closures or are they manual closures?
We're proposing, self-closing gates.
We're proposing self-closing.
Right. Mr. Sedaris? Right, good. Okay, any no more questions? We'll go back to our planner one more time. Anything?
At this point, I don't want to.
Mr. Costa?
Chairman, no.
Okay, at this point, I'll entertain a moment.
You have to open it to the public.
Yes, yes. Motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? At this point, the meeting is open to the public. Is there anybody that wishes to be heard? Seeing nobody waving their hands, a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve this application.
I will make a motion to approve the
Dr.
application.
Zerwitz,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Terry
With,
Sedaris.
with all stipulated
Yeah, of course.
amendments,
Mhm.
including specifically to the landlord and not the tenant, the no commercial vehicle parking.
Yep, and we're also going to incorporate Mr.
Both.
Costa.
I'm saying to the landlord versus for the whole property,
Both of
not
them. Mhm.
just the New York market as the tenant.
In non-business hours.
Yes, not the business.
And we'll be incorporating Mr. Costa and Mr. Barron's reports. And whatever Mr. Costa has volunteered to enforce and monitor, he will. And on that, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Would the board like me to just recite what I took down as the
Sure.
conditions, see if there's anything
Yep.
that I may have missed? First condition is that the applicant will comply with all the comments and recommendations of the board professionals, that would be Mr. Behrens and Mr. Costa, not only as set forth in their reports, but also as may have been stated this evening on the record. The applicant, Mr. Costa, this is a question for you. There's some repair or replacement with regard to the sidewalk in the new developers agreement, or some form of a quantity takeoff.
I think it's, even if it's an abbreviated version, I think there should be some agreement. Because it seems like it's much easier, I think, people comply, because then there's a little bit of leverage on our side.
I agree, and I took the opportunity to write it down, and this is the way that we handled it
Mhm.
with MCG. So even if it's a short form of an agreement, I think, I agree with Mr. Costa, it helps facilitate the process.
Counselor?
No objection.
The applicant will repair the storm sewer if necessary. Mr. Costa, is there anything else that you want added to that condition? Okay. No vans will be parked overnight at the site during non-business hours. This item, this condition was specifically agreed to by counsel for the landlord as well as counsel for the applicant. Is there anything that I missed?
You said no, I just wanted to clarify, no commercial parking, right? Because
No, it's none of the vans, because some of them are personal, are residentially.
it's saying no commercial
Registered.
vehicle.
Mhm.
That's fine.
I'm asking, can we stipulate no commercial vehicle?
Well, we stipulated even further than that by saying no overnight parking for the vans. Because if they take a van that's commercial and they re-register it as a residential,
Okay.
then they wouldn't be violating
So
what we
just to say
agreed
no
to.
parking on the property grounds during non-business hours?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, is that, is there currently, I mean, I haven't been to the site, parking which has been noticed by tenants other than this tenant? I mean, it seems like it's a concern.
Well,
Is it all just the?
No, there have been certain commercial vehicles that I don't believe are tenants there that are parked overnight, I have seen.
Well, then they'll definitely fall under this agreement.
Right.
And if they're there, I guess there'll be an enforcement issue. Maybe even no overnight parking signs. Maybe, yeah, that might be.
I do believe I've seen a non-tenant commercial vehicle or two parked there on occasion when I leave super early in the morning when the hour, nothing is open.
The landlord certainly doesn't want that either, so.
I'm just mentioning what
So
I've
maybe,
noticed.
how about
so-
posting the property and citing the ordinance? That way.
Is that a reasonable request?
Posting
There's a
signs.
borough ordinance, yeah, cite the borough ordinance.
So the landlord will post necessary signage on the property regarding no parking?
We're talking about citing the ambiguous ordinance?
Right, the ordinance states that it's permitted. He's doing something voluntarily. The ordinance states commercial.
May not want to, I mean, we'll just, if you have agreement to monitor, you're right, if the ordinance does permit it, there's an inconsistency there in the space perhaps.
Yeah, we're gonna have to tighten that audience.
You may want to revisit the ordinance on a council level.
Mhm.
Could they just simply say no overnight parking? It's not, doesn't necessarily need to be our ordinance, it's their rule.
Right.
of their-
Private property, no
That would go with any
overnight
part, I'd
parking.
have to go back to the landlord with any part, I don't
Mhm.
know what his position is. But it's the board's preference that there be no parking whatsoever on the site overnight.
That sounds fine.
I think call.
Counselor, is that a reasonable request, what I'm asking?
No, it's very reasonable.
It's
and
reasonable as long as.
We don't want anybody trying to skirt it by,
Well, that's why I brought it there. I've noticed on occasion that there are some commercial, what?
box trucks.
Box truck, a lawn care company,
Hmm.
and,
It's being used as a commercial parking lot.
correct. And I don't
Which
think
it is
that's,
not.
I don't think that's, reasonable, and I don't know what the vagueness of the ordinance, if it's enforceable. So if you request the landlord enforce it as private property, then you skirt the vagueness of the ordinance.
I don't have a problem with that, that's also private property, so I don't know how somebody has the right to enter onto it and just park.
They don't.
Leave
They
their
just sneak
vehicles
it on
there,
there.
right.
Right, but if they're willing to voluntarily sign this, then they can't create a side deal to rent commercial parking space at night. And we certainly don't want random trucks parking in the,
Perhaps that's part of the condition, that there can't be any rental of parking spaces overnight. Not to go too far afield, but.
If they agree to not allow parking, period, overnight, that should cover anything. If we limit it to vans, then it could be a box truck or
Counselor?
a landscaper's pickup truck.
I was not able to get a hold of him. That may be well within the landlord's rules and regulations. I just don't know that offhand, so hopefully we'll call back the next meeting or so.
Do one move on and then before the voting for.
Just one quick question, just to be pragmatic here. If we're talking about overnight, maybe we should specify hours, so allow the businesses maybe a half hour after closing, if there is some reason that they need a truck to do whatever they do. And then
Yeah,
towards
I think
actual
we're-
hours rather than overnight, because what does that mean?
Can we say 1 to 5?
I think we were pretty clear in what we're looking to accomplish. What we're looking to accomplish is not to have used that parking lot for storage. Certainly, if you get a 6 a.m. delivery, we're not going to have the police sitting there waiting for you to pick up the vehicle. But if we just don't want to park there. I mean, it's not a parking lot, it's a retail facility. I think we're being pretty clear, and I have a pretty strong suspicion that the tenant's attorney will be for us again when they go to rent that new space out. So I feel pretty confident that we'll have compliance without getting too crazy over it. We have your word, correct? And we have your word that your client is going to enforce it as best as possible, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, to the extent, I mean, my client's obviously not on site every day, but it's made well be within his rules and regs and in the lease itself. But if it's not,
I think it's been
and
addressed.
tenants, I mean, it becomes an enforcement issue, I guess, from the landlord's perspective as well. But without getting them, I'd have to say, it sounds reasonable to me. Certainly not the intent when he leases the space to allow tenants to store stuff overnight. He probably doesn't want that either, I'd imagine. He's very, when issues are brought to his attention, he takes care of them, much like the bins, which pop up from time to time, randomly, but he takes care of things. So unless I hear the opposite back from him, I'm inclined to agree voluntarily, in spite of what the ordinance may literally say, as a condition of approval, that we do our best as landlord to enforce that 1 to 6 prohibition on overnight parking, residential,
And do remind your client that he's an important part of the community, and that's an important piece of our downtown River Edge. So he should reasonably inspect it and make sure it's kept clean and kept
Right. I
the
just
way
don't
he
have his
expects.
consent. If you want to sign a rec that no overnight parking, I just don't have his consent that he would do that. We didn't talk about that accordingly.
All
But
right.
it doesn't seem like that's the...
That's
the
not a
crux-
major
the crux
issue.
here is-
I have your word, and certainly your attorney, I know where to find. So unless we want to go a step further, I think that we've accomplished what we're trying to accomplish.
What if the landlord is renting out space to landscape company A to store their truck there? Does he not have the right to do that on his property? We've already established the ordinance doesn't forbid it.
Well,
or at least the thought process is that perhaps the ordinance is ambiguous on the subject matter. And
I can assure you he's not currently.
Hmm?
I can assure you he's not currently.
So whatever's parked there, he's got no interest in. Nobody came up to him and said, "Listen, let me pay you $150 a month to just park it over there for a few hours a night."
Nope.
So, and I think we can incorporate
allow.
that in our resolution that the landlord agrees that he won't be renting out parking to any outside entities. Is that fair? Not renting out parking
Overnight.
spaces
We're
overnight?
talking about during business hours.
Well, he wouldn't.
I mean, I don't know what...
Well, why would he do that? I mean, those parking spaces are
They're
part
there
of
to
the
service
approval.
center. They're there to service the center, so...
Yeah, I'm saying he should never lease out spaces to, say, a landscaper or a bread delivery guy, that he can park his stuff there during the day,
Talking about
because that
commercial
takes up...
interests aside from the tenants inside.
Yes, aside from the tenants.
Commercial parking lot's not permitted in that zone.
Right.
So you can't utilize it anyway as a commercial parking lot. You can't rent out spaces, not legally anyway.
If it's against your ordinance, it's against your ordinance.
Right, use separate use. You have to return to this
Well,
board.
but I think we're also going to incorporate that, just so...
But the problem we're trying to solve, going back to the main issue, is just these trucks that are popping up either part of one or more of the tenant's businesses or non-related to the center. I can guarantee my client would not want non-tenants' vehicles being parked there overnight.
Right.
We're on the same page as you.
So I added that as conditional landlord not lease any spaces.
Yeah.
If it's there, just because we haven't caught it, 'cause we don't
Right.
deal with it.
But you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just have one last point of clarification. One of the board members mentioned the stop bar. That was Mr. Jackson.
That's what a stop sign.
Stop on the exit driveway.
Stop sign
On the way out.
at the exit driveway? Stop sign and a stop bar?
I think there is a stop sign shown on the plan, but the stop bar should be put in. It's
Okay.
right there, it's just an arrow.
I think that stop bar should also have the word spelled out, stop, because the sign itself can be blocked, and that's the reason.
That was the intent of it.
That was the intent.
So, Mr. Merman, if you could help me, I had it, what I added is the condition, and council, I just want to read this into the record. Stop bar will be added at the exit driveway?
Correct, with the word stop.
Okay.
Thank you.
You okay with that, Counselor? Yeah. We'll be backing up and leaving on the shed. We're not-
All right, so this question is addressed to both attorneys, both the applicant's attorney and the landlord's attorney. Does the applicant, the landlord's attorney, understand and accept these conditions?
As you just, the cumulative, as you just stated? Yes.
Okay. So we have the incorporations of our attorney, of our planner, our
Engineer.
engineer, I'm sorry. And I think we have a motion and a second, so we'll take that roll call vote.
Okay, Chair Killian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland? Yes. Dr. Gurowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Rosso?
Yes.
Mr. Kenigo?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
Mr. Sedaris?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right.
Thank you.
You're throwing down a DS.
Thank you, Councilman. I'll see you. That list was sent out to you today.
Oh, thank you.
So you should have it tomorrow.
I grew up with 5 four brothers and sisters.
One down, one go. Sure?
Especially when it comes to food.
This one?
Yeah, absolutely.
This stuff?
Can imagine.
Oh, okay.
Not a fun one. If I can find my
I don't think he heard me.
agenda and all this.
It's gonna take 3 minutes and check the stuff.
Yeah, you know what? Let's get a quick water break. Motion to adjourn for a few minutes.
So made.
8:50. And we are prepared to hear our last hearing for the evening. It's RSM Trading LLC, 606 Kinnecamack Road, Block 617, Lot 14. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Severius Oresti on behalf of the applicant. Basically, there are two parts of this application. We're here before the board because this particular applicant, Monster Restaurant, had acquired the business formerly operated by Babylon Restaurant for many years. It was done in the fall, and she opened up around September 1st of 2017. In our ordinance, it does provide that if you are operating a restaurant, you have to get approved handler's license, and that a site plan application must be submitted in conjunction with that application. So the first part of the application is that we are presenting a site plan application for this particular restaurant. As far as the restaurant is concerned, there is no change or expansion or development of the restaurant. The restaurant itself is about 3,000 square feet. The footprint of the restaurant, all the lot coverage is about 90% of the property. It's between the building and the bituminous coverage. There's only about 1,000 square feet of green space, which is located in the front of the building on the Kinnecamack Road side, so that the building, and there's no variation or difference in terms of the building. What the applicant wants to do is that she has 123 seats, which is the seating capacity when the Babylon Restaurant operated the business. So we would probably allocate some of that between the dining room area on the first floor and the lower level. Also, so we would have an additional area of approximately 50 seats on the lower level and approximately 70 seats upstairs to service the customers, and downstairs primarily be utilized for parties, for parties. So they would have a separate facility down there.
And not to interrupt, I'm just curious. That building had 3 components. You had the upstairs and downstairs, and then you had a store next door to the restaurant.
Yeah,
What's there now?
They expanded the dining room, so the
That's the
dining room
dining room,
expands into
okay.
that additional area on the north side.
Okay.
The other aspect of the second side is the outdoor seating. She would like to do a seasonal seating arrangement, very similar to what you see at Sanducci's. Basically, it consists of about 345 square feet. It's pretty much the size of a room, a residential room. It measures like 23 feet by 15 feet. It's 345 square feet. Anywhere from 12 to 18 seats would be placed in that area. Under our ordinance, you can only have a seating for two on the outside of the restaurant. We have reviewed Bob Costa's report, and I'll have Mr. Hanoush cover some of that area, but we have no problem in complying with the recommendations that are made for the safety of our patrons. So that's basically the overview of the application. We have 3 exhibits. A1, which is the site plan that was prepared by Gabriel Hanoush. It's dated April 4, 2018. Consists of 1 page. A2 is the architectural plan prepared by A.J. Kim, architect. Goes back to April 26, 2017. Which is first for configuration of the floor plan. And A3, which is the outdoor seating, shown on a site plan, which was also prepared by I.J. Kim Architect back on May 8, 2017. With that being said, I can call Mr. Hanoush and have him testify as to basically the proposal.
Please raise your hand, please. Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Gabriel Hanoush, 247 Summit Avenue, Hackensack, New Jersey.
Gabriel, we want to give them the benefit of your education and licensing.
Yeah, I'm licensed architect in the state of New Jersey and licensed engineer also in the state of New Jersey.
And have you, what is the background of your education?
I have Bachelor of Architecture from New Jersey School of Architecture, Lucky's program, and master's degree from New Jersey School of Engineering.
And have you testified before any boards in North Jersey?
So many years.
Okay. Would you like to welcome Mr. Hanoush as an expert?
In what fields?
I'm going to have him testify as an engineer.
Any questions from the board members?
I have a bunch.
Please.
You want to hear him first?
His license number?
No, right now, we're just swearing him in.
Oh, fine.
You good?
You're both an architect and an engineer. Both licenses are in order? Okay. So I can ask you both architectural and engineering questions?
I'm here for engineering.
You're here only as an engineer? Okay, let the record show that.
Are we good?
Right?
Counselor?
I just wanted to swear in the board's witnesses as well. Mr. Costa, Mr. Behrens, you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And,
This gentleman, this one, Mr. Hanoush.
mm-hmm,
Who this was?
what? Okay. Continue.
Gabe, you want to basically give us an overview of the existing conditions on the site?
Basically, the site is 20 feet wide and 120 feet depth.
So how many square feet is it?
12,500 square feet.
Okay, and could you describe the existing structures on the property?
It's a one-story building with a base.
And what is roughly the size of the building, you know?
About 3,000 square feet, the footprint of the building.
And the grade of the property, just briefly to cover the grade of the property, how it slopes?
It's basically on Kinder Kamak Road, and as you go to the parking lot, which is in the back, it slopes it.
And what about the proposal here? Do you want to describe basically the proposal to the board while we're here?
The client wants to add around 345 square feet at the front of the building for outside seating. And that will increase the impervious coverage by about 2%.
And currently, what is the impervious coverage or the lot coverage for all improved
Presently,
structures?
it's around 91%, and the allowable is 80%.
So it's 80% under the ordinance, it's 90%, so it's a non-conforming
Non-conforming.
aspect of the application.
Yes.
Okay, so the development would be then to add roughly 345 square feet for the seasonal seating?
Correct.
And with reference to what is the material being used for the seasonal seating?
They propose the paper on the, for the season.
And did you have an opportunity to review Mr. Costa's report on this matter?
Yes.
He had made certain recommendations concerning the placement of bollards and landscaping?
Yes, we can comply with them.
We can comply with this report? So you had read the report today, correct?
Yes.
Yes. With reference to the, so we have the outdoor seating, so with reference to the seating capacity of the premises, do you know what the seating capacity is?
It's 123 present.
And is there any proposal to increase that seating capacity?
No.
So it's going to be seated in?
Exactly.
Is this basically an allocation between the first and basement level?
They prefer to have 70 seats on, 73 and 50 downstairs.
Approximately 70 and 50 seats as a split? Okay. I really don't have any other questions of the witness. No expansion of it?
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Any questions?
No, I get it. Basically, I mean, we did a very slight report, but I guess I was expecting a little detail as far as what fencing, we're going to provide, what type of fencing. Basically, you just show pavers with a little diagram. I'm not sure exactly, I don't know if there's going to be testimony for that. When Sanducci's came in with, obviously, an architect.
Proposed, but if the recommendation is that we should do fencing, I mean, obviously the bollards would be important because of the possibility of an accident, let's say, a vehicular accident. And certainly we would consider that, and we have no objection to doing fencing, maybe we did not.
So basically, it's
Probably landscaping.
just brick pavers and some landscaping.
Some landscaping. Unless the board felt otherwise.
I'll get back to you. Mr. Barron?
I had similar thoughts as Rob, that just to understand exactly, other than the pavers, what else is happening, and maybe that's something we work on after the fact, as a condition, or we come up with something.
Work with your engineer, I mean, whatever.
What we hear from the board with today, maybe we'd like to see the applicant be amenable to comply with that. One issue I did point out, or I wanted to ask the applicant about, was because they're already exceeding what's permitted with the impervious, they're going to be extending that somewhat. And so I guess, I think you are requesting relief for that additional impervious?
We would, I mean, that would be absolutely correct, so that we're actually, increasing the impervious cover by roughly 1% on 345 square feet.
Aside from that, I also have a thought. Just to the north of that area is sort of this paved area where there's nothing really going on.
Yeah, we looked at that.
And what is the future plan?
I think what we would do, Robin mentioned about having handicap parking. Because of the grade of the property in the back, it would not be suitable to designate any of those spaces for handicap parking. I think I think 2 vehicles can probably park in there. It looks like it's about 20 feet wide, and we would convert that to a handicap parking space. I think that would make sense. And that could be a stipulation in the resolution.
Rob, any issues with water, extending the coverage?
No, I mean, underneath, again, there's no details provided at this point as far, what I would recommend underneath, if they're not gonna do, obviously, seepage pits or something in that to manage the water, basically 22 inches of stone underneath the brick pavers, and just make sure that the drains into the middle of that. Very simple calculation, I know. 9-inch storm, 40% there in the rock. 9 divided by 0.4, 22 and a half.
We learned about this in our stormwater training this evening.
You're experts.
Should those pavers be permeable?
Anything else?
I just, in addition to landscaping and fencing, obviously, I think lighting will also probably be a component of that to work out.
Is the board comfortable with putting that in the hands of our planner and engineer?
Wait to hear from me.
applicant provided testimony of parking. The ordinance allows up to 15% without impacting the parking, so while they really have, I guess, 8 spaces on site, the use isn't necessarily being, or exacerbating the parking demand at this point. But the applicant did indicate that they were going to look into installing a handicap space. Final thought, sorry, I just want to leave you with it. While there's a lot layout on the plans, at some point, a formal survey should probably be submitted, maybe with the as-built conditions, whether or not the board approves the application.
I have no problem with that.
And the final comment would be with regard to updating the street scale, similar to what St. Lucie does. Or whatever the FEMA requirements are.
Counselor?
I don't have a problem with that either.
Okay, Councilman?
I'll defer to Mr. Merman right now. He seems to have a lot of questions. Him bang them out and then
Let's start from the left first, just so we can get everybody covered in the phone.
Yeah, I have a question. The concrete sidewalk in front of the building, can that be reduced so that you can move the seating area closer to the building? And then you'll have more green space? Yeah, you have the building and then you have...
Are you talking about the concrete?
The sidewalk
Yeah,
in front.
Yeah, the walkway in front of the building.
Right, and then you have the seating. Can you...
Yeah, we could do that. I think what
reduce-
would happen is that Babylon utilized that concrete platform or area for outdoor seating.
Okay.
I don't know if that's okay there, but that's what I recall. I'm sure we can reduce that.
Yeah, there's a thing
Mr. Rusty?
this, the line would be something like
Yeah.
that.
We could utilize that area and reduce the projection.
Okay, or reduce the sidewalk and concentrate to the area you want, but that has less impervious.
That can be done.
Great.
All right, so you want to just repeat what was just said, so our
I
attorney has...
think what she was saying is that there is a concrete walkway in the front of the building, whether that could be reduced or incorporated as part of the patio area. And
still end up with the 345 square foot.
Bring it closer to the building.
To the building. Great. That makes sense.
Right, right. Or even just like take off that as well, because you don't need all of that.
Anything else?
My only other question is, you don't have any new signs proposed, right?
No new signs.
Okay, that was it.
Related to that comment, the sign is not shown on the plans and it probably should be indicated. I don't know if it's going to conflict.
Well, we'll get to that. Mr. Grasso? That was a great ad, by the way. Okay.
Okay, Richard.
Go to the sign first.
No.
No?
You want to do the sign first?
Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I didn't receive the comments from the professionals until well after 6 o'clock tonight. Okay. We're going to have to do something. So I did my own review of this application.
Before you continue with that, with all due respect, we didn't get the plans until, I think, Monday.
I think what happened is that Ed Alter was sick, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit of a coordination effort here, because
We're working on it. We've fixed it.
So
It's been-
I had called actually the attorney's office to get some direction on it, so I understand.
Okay.
We only got...
So,
That's my knowledge.
not picking on you, Mr. Costa.
No, but I'm saying-
There we
Basically,
go.
what I'm saying is I did my own review and we have an overlap on some comments, okay?
No trouble.
All right. Mr. Soresti, I'm gonna, do this, in, 3 little steps. One is gonna be general, and then we'll go A1 drawing, A1, and so forth, okay? From a general standpoint, while you did submit the plans, I find them to be incomplete, especially the architects. The architect's plans A110 and A100, neither one is signed and sealed.
I'm aware of it.
I find that to be a major defect.
I'm aware of it. We got into the picture late on this,
Well,
but I understand it, so the only suggestion I can make, if it's acceptable,
likewise, on your architect's plan A1110, it's got the wrong title.
I saw that also.
He's referring to an interior renovation to an existing two-family dwelling.
I saw all of this.
Okay?
Make a
No, I'm
suggestion.
just going on the record.
Well, maybe we
These
can
drawings are
address
gotta be
it.
fixed, okay?
So what I was gonna suggest that if this were to be favorable, we would revise and redrawn, signed and sealed.
Yes.
Not by the same architect, but probably by Mr. Anusha's firm.
All right.
So we could do that as a condition.
Right, all right.
We're aware of it.
Now that I'm done yelling at you. Okay. From a general standpoint, I read your printed introduction, and I do remember sitting on this board when we converted from Beamers, I believe it was, back in the early 1900s. No, in the early 1900s. There was an application for a wholesale food operation.
That's correct.
And I believe I heard you say that, in your introduction, that it was a 2017 amendment to this site?
No, what I said was that I looked at the plans that you referred to them being not
Mhm.
signed and sealed. They were done in 2017. These plans.
2 years, last year? No. No. There was, I believe, in early 1900s, no, early 1990s,
Right.
a food operation,
I remember.
wholesale food operation proposed.
I remember.
Okay, and one of the discussions was it was only going to be wholesale, there was to be no other food operation downstairs, and that never came about, but there were stipulations, only wholesale in the evening at night.
I remember the application.
Okay. How did we get to the point where we're using the downstairs right now? Was there an intermediate approval?
They're not using it now.
They were not using it now. It's
Okay, so then we're going to amend that previous one?
Well, it's a different applicant, so I don't see how you can, it's a different applicant who chose, I guess he never operated there. I remember the case.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether he ever opened for business or
No,
not.
they never did.
He never did. So this
No.
particular applicant is totally different. I mean, it's
So
the
you're
rest of the board.
asking that this board change their thinking from before?
Well, I think it makes more sense because, if you have a party and then you have regular patrons at the same time, it interferes with the diners who don't want to have, a birthday party and people, having a good time, with reference to their party. And this way, the party would be
So,
separated from.
right now, we're
Without
proposing...
increasing the seating capacity.
Correct. Right now, you're proposing to utilize that room downstairs as a party room, that space.
That's correct.
Okay.
As a separate facility.
So you're going to supersede, you're looking to supersede what the board previously
I guess so, but I mean, if you go back, it goes, I remember, I've been doing this for like 50 years, so if you go back, we did the Cobblestone Restaurant, if you remember the Cobblestone
Yes,
Restaurant. that
Madison
operated out of
too.
there. Then Beamers, I mean, I've never been to Beamers, but I think it operated at a lower level.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
so there's been a lot of transformations of that building.
If I recall, the last real use of that downstairs was Beamers when it was
Beamers
bought.
was the last
We
time.
did I was here for that approval, now that he reminded me. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they didn't get a CO,
No.
then they don't really have that use, that use.
But it was
So-
memorialized.
Yeah, but to change it back to where it was, because it was never used like that before, in my opinion, I don't think it's gonna be a major.
No, I know. I just want to make sure.
Remember, there was
Yeah.
there was Evergreens, I think, the Chinese restaurant that operated out of that
Yeah,
location on the
it had a
first level.
piano.
And then I think they had the license, I believe. if I
The liquor
recall.
license.
The liquor license,
Yep.
and I think eventually that license was the.
Came from Madison.
I don't know what the arrangement was, because you got some
Mhm.
very strict restrictions on ABC requirements on licensing. I don't know
Mhm.
whether Beamers ever bought the license, or whether she extended the license into the basement, which could have been done.
She extended it.
Is that what it is? Yeah, that could be.
That was I don't want to get too far into this, but that was one of those planetary 32 licenses that you can use for a whole multitude of different things. That's why they had the liquor store, the restaurant, and a bar. It was one of the licenses that fell through prohibition, when they changed them all over to either consumption or packaged goods. This one you can do everything, which I believe is sitting down in Mr. Sedaris' at this point. But anyway, so we have
Okay.
ancient history, we know where we
Okay,
are.
all right.
and-
So now we're gonna utilize the lower level, for a party room.
There's a party facility.
And they're not changing their seating, so there's no...
No, that's okay. One thing I do remember, we also, when they were gonna do cooking and all, we asked that the sewer be TV and a grease trap
I
installed.
think Rob.
I don't know.
Bob
Okay,
mentioned we
so I think we got a
comply
little,
with
all right. From the standpoint of parking, I think I heard you say that there's a licensing or some kind of an agreement.
There is.
Can you explain
I spoke to Gary Gorsuch outside also.
Just now?
What it is that if you take a look, it's very unusual. The very back of her property, it
Yeah.
doesn't go all the way back. So there are literally 11 parking spaces
Mhm.
beyond her property line,
Mhm.
which are located along that along the westerly side of the boundary. Those 11 spaces actually belong to, as I understand, would belong to Gary Gorsuch. He entered, but to access those spaces, you would have to cross onto this particular property.
Right.
So it's like a catch-22. It's like, how do I get to them even though I have them? Because if you look at them, they actually are, those spaces are 18 to 20 feet in depth, and they actually go on this particular property. So what I understood from Gary, and I don't have the agreement, because I understand that our client just received it the early part of this week. There is a licensing agreement that was signed by, I think his name is Neil Iden, who owns the
Right.
building, and Gary, so that they share, that's a shared licensing
Okay,
agreement.
that's what I was getting at. There is that licensing agreement, and you have the reverse of it also to use his spaces.
That's correct. Those
Okay,
spaces are
'cause you
shared
only-
by Santucci.
You only have a total of 8 shown right now.
Well, 8 and then...
And they've been there, and I do agree with you, the parking situation there, classify it in one word, is nasty, okay?
It's difficult.
Yeah.
Is that a technical term?
Yes.
I mean, she is
It comes from
resorted
the
to
Greek word.
like parking in order to
All right,
accommodate
very good.
patients.
We're gonna talk about parking a little bit later.
Let me just, okay, so, but you'll provide us with a copy of the cross agreement.
I'll get that copy. She does have a copy.
Okay.
She can bring it with her.
All right.
Mr. Soresti, if I may, it's a license agreement?
You know, I haven't seen it, so I don't want to characterize it as, it could be just an informal agreement. I'm not sure.
It's the same agreement that he provided to us.
On the MCG?
Yes. See, he never saw it.
As a license agreement, that's what
Yeah.
council says, license agreement.
I understand it to be a license agreement only because that's what Gary had characterized it as. I haven't
Okay.
read it and haven't seen it, but I can produce it. I asked the client whether she had a copy, and
You
she
can
told
forward,
me she has it.
please forward it over to us as well.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy.
But my point there being, it should be reciprocal for your situation also.
It is, because originally my client thought she had all those
Right.
spaces,
Okay.
and then, she found out the hard way that she didn't have them all, and that they basically they're to be shared.
Yeah, all right. So you just agreed to submit that to the board?
Absolutely.
Okay. You talked about impervious coverage, there's no use going into that, let's go on to the next drawing, which is the architect's drawing A110. And I just want to make sure I'm reading this drawing correctly. The existing dining room has a wall that is shown in the dotted, which is the north wall of the existing dining room. It looks like you're providing an opening to the other storefront that was there.
That's correct.
You're calling it now existing seating area, we'll discuss that separately. But, your intent is to take and combine that floor area up north with the existing restaurant layout.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
And that's currently the condition.
Oh, I haven't been in there
Yeah,
recently.
it is. It's
right.
all open. It's all
Okay.
open.
Now, okay, that's fine. heading here of existing seating area that we just referred to in the north old storefront there. Where it says ground floor plan, right above that.
This is, existing seating, I see it here, yes.
Okay. If it's existing seating area, there's nothing in there? Because you went to great extent to show all the seating and the tables and the chairs elsewhere, both down in the party room and over here.
Well, your comments are very well taken. I saw this plan, I mean, I'm not happy with it. That's why I volunteered to have these plans redrawn by this architectural firm, so they could get something more accurate.
I guess my question is, if it's existing, it doesn't drive. Number one. Number two, if you're gonna use it, show it and then rearrange your 128 total.
Yeah, what this plan shows is 69 seats, so there's an elimination of certain seating capacity, which is, I guess, shown on the left side of the drawing.
Well,
So, but
let me be
there's
quite
123 seats
Let
up
me
on
be
this
frank.
floor.
All right? I'm suspicious of creeping tables and chairs, all right? If you see my thrust here. If you're gonna give me a blank space and call it existing and not show me a layout where you went and did it elsewhere, 6 months from now, I'm gonna be seeing more tables and chairs and we're gonna impact the
Comments
parking.
are totally legitimate. This plan should be really redrawn to show the seating
All right.
capacity as it really exists. They can do that. What he did here in this particular drawing,
Just so you know, they use it as a buffet area. I know it's not marked, I'm just letting you know, having been in there, it's used as a buffet area, there's no tables.
Well, then show it.
So, no, I'm just letting you know for edification.
Okay.
So it should be drawn, if they're not
Right.
planning on seating there, they should say
Right.
that
Right.
yeah,
being used for service, not.
yeah, I've been inside it, so I'm aware of it.
With the testimony of your client, we have to get her up here, is that she's not going to increase the tables or seating within the building itself? Or
That's
she's just going to relocate some?
She's never had 125 people in that building.
Can we get up here and swear?
Yeah, come on up, Rika. Want to raise your right hand? Want to raise your right hand?
I swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please state your name for the record.
Rika Karnik,
Will you please spell your name for me?
Rekha, Karnik, Karnik.
K-A-R-N-I-K?
Right.
Thank you.
Can you put your hand up? Just sit down.
All right, so it's being represented by your attorney that although there's going to be additional space downstairs, this piece over here, that you're not going to increase the seating by one,
That's correct.
okay? So we have that sworn
What is the current number?
123.
128.
123.
Great.
123?
Okay, because if I'm, and I understand that you're saying this needs to change, but what I get when I count up the seats,
69.
I get 65 on the first.
So you have to count the
Count the bar.
The bar,
There are 14 tables of 4,
right?
56.
Nine tables of 9 single bars.
Right, so that makes 65.
65. That's what I.
Okay, and then downstairs it shows 50,
Right.
and then there are 12 outside.
No,
This is-
there's 123 seats currently on that first level. This is not accurately showing maybe the seating configuration. It's going to be approximately 70 seats. This shows 65. So then you would just take the difference, which would be the amount of go downstairs. There could be 45 downstairs and maybe.
Well, yeah, that's the reason I'm asking, because the numbers are, so it's 123
23 seats
currently.
max.
There'll be 70 and 50, and then you'll have the additional seasonal seating outside.
Additional seating outside is not considered.
Doesn't count.
No, I'm just
That
trying to
is
make sure I
correct.
understand
That is
what
correct.
you're planning.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, so we have that under testimony, that they're not going to increase the seating.
123 is the number.
123. And as you said, you're gonna fix the plan. Let's, we discussed the sign, right? Oh, no. Let's move on to A100. which is the architect's other drawing.
And I apologize, I don't know if he was sitting there, I couldn't have called up here until he was done, but you want to come up and sit alongside, where you'll find a chair.
Tim?
This way we have everybody.
I believe it was Mr. Costa said, or the planner, that you want a recent survey or reference the survey because the architect who showed the site plan here didn't reference a survey, so he's got to make that correction. You also, behind your proposed patio, left out the concrete, which we're now going to be discussing with the patio. What we talk about now? Let's look at the patio. That's probably the main bulk of comments we got here we want to look at. Next, the patio, proposed patio on the north side of that is asphalt paving. And we just had a discussion. Right now, you have parking there. Well, it's not striped. It's basically de facto parking. Okay. We just had a discussion about putting in 1 or 2 handicap spaces there.
I think from 1 to 25 you need 1, but it's got to be van accessible, so that's the case.
Okay, and I think you agree to that.
No, yes, absolutely, because it's the only logical place to...
Well, from a practical standpoint also, it'll enhance.
We have no problem with that, that seems to be
Okay.
the logical place.
Now, the reason I mention that is when I go to the ordinance says there should be no outdoor dining shall be located less than 8 feet from any driveway and or parking area. Right now, you're abutting to 0.
I'm not sure I follow you.
All right, you're proposing a patio dining.
Right.
Okay, that abuts the asphalt parking.
Correct.
All right, and the ordinance says, quote, "No outdoor dining area shall be located less than 8 feet from any driveway and/or parking area."
You're correct.
Unless the applicant installs protective bollards and/or barriers.
Well, we would install the bollards, we
Okay.
could just stipulate to the bollards.
Now, what I'm thinking here is you might want to shift that patio slightly towards the driveway to the south so you can get your handicap parking in there.
It's not a problem.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And just hold on because we're going to follow on with this, all right? From a landscaping standpoint, you've decorated the front of that building quite nice now with a tree and mulch and some bushes, which are now going to be gone, destroyed or whatever because of your patio. So what I'm suggesting for you to consider, slightly shift that patio towards the driveway to the south.
Right.
Put a little landscaping in there between the paving and your patio. Likewise, on the opposite side of the patio, the south end, some landscaping. All right. What I also would like you to consider to help you is take some of the shrubbery and installation you have now and just simply relocate it. All right, to cut the expense down. You might want to also consider putting something between the patio and Kinderkamak Road just to break it up, but I do think we need a landscape proposal.
No, I agree with you, and the client's amenable to it.
Okay, and I think it will help you.
And we can make that subject to Mr. Costa's oversight? I'm sorry, yeah. Sorry, Tom. One or the other, I don't know, whichever you come to work first.
Now, your architect I think Mr. Costa hinted to this earlier. Your architect has just shown something that a bunch of squares and circles and bollards and all. We need definite details on the bollards. I mean, because right now you can put anything from a 2x4 in there to an 8-inch steel pipe.
You can show a detail of it.
We need a detail of that.
Don't they have planter bollards?
It's up to the architect, that's what you're paying them for.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna do his design work. And whatever fencing you have there or a barrier. Basically what I'm saying is we need good engineering and architectural details for that patio.
I agree.
You have nothing now. All right. Outdoor lighting, I think it was touched upon. Do you plan to have, you're gonna have to have some kind of lighting there. Or when it gets dark in the summer, either that or you're gonna spend a lot of money on candles. You wanna come up with a proposal for low-level lighting out there?
No, but we were going to use some umbrellas with the lighting.
You were gonna what?
Umbrellas with lighting.
I don't follow.
Umbrellas with like the...
Oh, umbrellas with, okay, all right, that's fine, that's fine.
Probably less spillage.
All right, so we need to show that somehow, or even put a note on here. All right. From the sign standpoint, there was an old wood sign there that was basically what we call now a monument sign. And I believe your architect showed it on the drawing, and that was probably from the survey that he worked from. My basic question is, the monument sign is gone. The ordinance does not permit monument signs, and I assume that you're not going to replace a monument sign.
Just ask you, do you have a monument sign now?
No, it's gone.
Okay.
We're not.
Somebody kicked it down about 6 weeks ago.
I think she answered, are you gonna replace that sign?
No,
There's
we're
no
not.
intention.
Okay, so no problem. All right.
Make a note of it.
All right, let's go back to one sheet here. What I would like to propose is that you restripe the parking.
Front and back?
Well, he's gonna have to do the front because he's putting handicap in there.
So
All
the
right.
back.
So, yeah, you only got 8 spots anyway.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
also
when I looked at it last, it's well overdue.
no problem.
All right. No new signs. Pervious coverage is no problem. Yeah, so you have, basically, your professionals have some work to do.
They've got their homework. I just would like to ask Eileen a question on the, Eileen? On the concrete area that is located behind the proposed pavers, do you want that concrete eliminated, reduced, and then move the...
You probably need a walkway.
Behind it, so it's...
You probably need some walkway so that you're not walking through the tables, but
Yeah.
as reduced as you can, as much as you can.
Well, it'd still be a paver, but you could incorporate it into one.
Maybe we could just put pavers
Yeah,
in.
yeah, I mean, rather, why break
Be
it down concrete?
consistent anyway, so in other words, just extend the pavers closer to the building. It would move the patio. Yeah, right here, it's apparently a concrete area back here, so just move it closer to the building.
And then that reduces the variance for coverage as well.
Yeah.
Also gives you, Mr. Chairman suggested, the room for the landscaping.
Yeah, makes sense, it's a good idea.
So this area that's depicted as concrete will be replaced with pavers?
We'll do it, we'll reduce it so that we won't increase it will still be 345 square feet, and the dimension will still be 15 by 23. So it just would be closer to the building and eliminate the concrete and substitute pavers. This way, as Mr. Sedura said, you can put plantings in the front of it, which I think will look nice.
That's great.
Just to be clear, the drawing shows 12 seats for now, so
Yeah, I
you
saw
might
it.
have up to 18.
Up to 18 was permitted.
Yeah, it's nowhere.
Ryan, could you just turn down the air conditioning a little bit for us? Right behind you. Turn it up. Down. It's too warm.
And I'm happy to see the monument sign gone. Just thought I'd let you know.
Counselor?
Mr. Soresti,
Yeah.
you noticed for minor, for I think site plan approval, no variances were noted. It's my understanding the applicant now seeks a variance for impervious.
Yeah, well, what I did say in the notice, I did publish a notice. I mean, the statute was silent on whether a notice was required for a food handler's license, so but we did put in the notice that we would seek any additional approvals if, upon presentation of the application.
I wasn't calling you out on a notice issue. I had
Oh.
a simple question.
Okay, good.
The question is in terms of the impervious, what is required, what's existing, and what's proposed?
Okay, so from what I understand, is that the current impervious area is about 90% lot coverage.
Thank you, Ryan.
Lot coverage, and that 80% is what is permitted by law. So it's a non-conforming aspect of the application.
And
They're
what,
now proposing an additional 345 square feet. About 2%, yeah, that will be about 2% increase in the lot coverage.
so 92%, so what I have is 90% existing lot coverage, 80% permitted, 92% proposed?
That's correct.
But that might be a little less.
Could be a little less.
What, plus or minus?
Because we're eliminating the concrete, so
Let the engineer provide you with the exact number.
that's what he's
All right.
figuring for, so he'll do it.
So I would assume then we're
I
gonna
think
get,
that's a pretty accurate figure.
get revised plans?
Yeah.
We need revised plans for the variance.
Right.
Yeah.
So my question simply is, for the record, this is the impervious, the client is seeking site plan approval and improved lot coverage variance. So what I'm gonna ask is, before this resolution is prepared or finalized, for revised plans to be submitted, so I can incorporate those revisions into the body of the resolution.
That makes total sense.
Question, and you may have been asked this, and it was just a while ago, and I forget the answer. The first comment that the engineer made regarding the River Edge streetscape improvements at
Right.
the entrance, was that discussed, and did you agree to do that, or?
There's a streetscape ordinance, and they want us to comply with it or to provide.
It would be really, see what's in front of citation, maybe on the board. Pavers and lighting.
Can you speak up, Mr. Costa?
It's streetscape, it's pavers, sidewalks, it's lighting. I mean, it's up to the board.
Tree pit?
Trees, street trees.
I think we always should require it for a new applicant, for anyone who comes before us.
You understand what apparently there's an ordinance that does have what they call a streetscape, which can consist of pavers, lighting, and landscaping. So they're suggesting that in front of the building, obviously it would have to be right in front of the building, there are driveways and parking on the north side. We would provide some
Is there concrete?
details.
There is.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay.
You okay with that?
We'll work with the planner on that. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll,
Yeah.
See if you can work with the planner instead of Rob Nolan.
All right, so they'll comply with streetscape.
Basically, that's my comments.
We already passed you. Mr. Castle?
No. I'm giving you the permission.
Mr. Gerwitz? Mr. Sedaris?
And I don't know if you can concern in the quality to make sure that we have something in there, you know, be with that and certainly already brought it up, but just to ensure that we have something that's properly anchored, the correct depth, reinforced, not where it's supposed to be, and that the quality itself be large enough, because in my experience, it will be
impacted.
Now, you know, it's my personal experience that I just replaced 6 of them.
Just speak up, Mr. Sedaris,
I
please.
just replaced 6 bollards myself, and every one of them was bad. However, say they weren't there, the worst that would happen, they would have gotten bricks. Here,
problem. I'm sure Gabe, you would provide a detail of the color, right? He'll show that on the plans.
Do you have anything else to add, Counselor?
I think that's it.
Professionals, any more?
At least one nitpicking thing. The ordinance talks about a noise provision. We had some provision for the Sanducci's outdoor dining, and maybe we should just mimic that, whatever
As far as the music is, yeah.
Yeah, hours and all that, whatever it is.
Is that,
I don't think that's a problem. I mean, her hours are pretty reasonable. She's open from, I think, from 5 to 10, 3 days a week.
6 days.
6 days a week, 5 to 10.
Yeah.
And then she has,
12 to 3.
she has a lunch hour from 12 to 3.
Also, if I may add, I believe that would fall under the borough's existing noise ordinance.
Yeah.
There is,
Just
just
10
a
PM, so it should be within that.
And also, just to reiterate, we had discussed that the site plan shows 12 outdoor seating spaces, but they want updated to
Mr. Soresti, when the plans are updated and submitted, please have it reflect that change.
Right.
With regards to the outdoor seating, it says 12, 18 are being
Yeah,
proposed.
you'll have to show 8. This shows only 12. We permitted 18, so you'll have to see whether we can accommodate 18 and then show it on the plan. Okay.
And I'm sorry, the hours of operation, 5 to 10 p.m., 6 days a week?
Okay, Mondays are closed.
no lunch?
No lunch?
So 12 to 3
12,
is lunch, and then 5 to 10.
so say 12 to 10.
And close Mondays?
Right.
I don't think we need to have
And
that.
Fridays and Saturdays are open till 11 o'clock. though.
Yeah. Good.
Fridays and
It's optional.
Fridays and Saturdays 5 to 11.
Yeah, I don't think we need that. I think 12, I think to play it safe, go to 12 to 10, Sunday through Saturday. And this way,
11.
She was 11. Friday.
I'm sorry, 11. Yep, 11 to 11?
No, 12 to 11.
12 to 11,
12 to
okay.
11. No,
You're right within the ordinance, and there's no sense in limiting that.
Right.
Open to public. No more questions from the board?
Just one other, you mentioned umbrellas, so you're not planning any kind of a roof on top?
Yeah, no room. Just the patio right now.
Motion open to the public.
Me.
Second, Mr. Merman and Mr. Kaplan, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained?
I'm good.
Motion to close to the public? So, any second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, any abstained? Okay. At this point, I'm prepared to take a motion based on the extensive writing of our counselor and the incorporation of both Mr. Costa and Mr. Barron's reports.
So moved.
Mayor Canango,
Not yet.
Put your-
Not yet.
Councilman
Getting ahead of
Canango.
myself. Thank you.
Do you want to talk about the limitation on the license?
Well, I think,
Okay.
as far as the food license goes, it's an existing operation. They moved over. There's no, you didn't change the kitchen or anything, correct? The fire thing is in place. Everything is up to date. I think we're good with that. So Councilman Canango, and we have a second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, we have a second by Mr. Sedaris?
Correct.
Who seconded?
Yes. Yep. Do you want to read your stuff into the,
It would be my pleasure.
okay?
Let's hope I can use my notes here. I have a number of conditions that I took down based on the comments from the board. The first condition is fencing, lighting, and landscaping is to be added to the plans, revised plans to be submitted, subject to approval by the board planner, Thomas Behrens. Second condition, the applicant will comply with any and all conditions set forth in the reports of the professionals. That would include Mr. Costa and Mr. Behrens, and any conditions or recommendations made on the record this evening. The third condition is that the applicant has agreed to add one parking space.
Handicap.
No, it's
Handicap?
existing to convert it to a handicap.
It's an addition, it's a conversion.
Conversion to one space. Okay. Mr. Costa made a recommendation that 22-inch stone is to be put underneath the brick pavers with the drain. I believe his report covers that as well, so that will be just stated in the body of the resolution. The applicant will look into the installation of a handicap parking space. Formal survey with as-built conditions is to be submitted to the board
Yes.
prior to the adoption of the memorializing resolution.
Sounds fair.
Revised sign and seal plans incorporating all the comments, revisions as discussed on the record this evening will be submitted to this board before the memorializing resolution is adopted. The applicant will update the streetscape similar to Sanducci's. Ms. Boland made a comment regarding the reduction of the concrete area and replacing a portion of that with pavers, and in no event will the 345 square foot outdoor area be increased, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The next condition that I have is that the sewer will be TV'd or televised and the grease trap will be installed. Landscape plan is to be submitted to the board and to Mr. Behrens for review and approval. The applicant is to submit to the board engineer and to the board the details for the bollards to be installed. And that again is subject to the approval by the board engineer. The parking lot will be restriped. That will be both in the front and the back. The applicant will comply with borough's streetscape ordinance. Is there anything that I may have missed?
There'll be no new signs.
Sorry?
No new signs.
No new signs.
And we have the agreement, parking agreement.
Yeah, you'll, the
Counselor,
licensure.
we discussed that you will supply this board. You can send it to me. I can forward it to the land use secretary. You can send me the
Yeah, I'll
license
either get it
agreement.
from Gary or if the client has it, I'll get it from her.
What happens if board members, if that license agreement is revoked? Trigger a return to the board, much like we did with MCG?
Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, from a practical standpoint, it's sort of a symbiotic relationship because Gary can't access it without coming on our property. We can't use it since it's his property.
Right. We put the same condition on Mr. Gorsuch,
So it'll work.
Those are the conditions that I took down.
Did we also note no increase in seating?
Sorry?
No increase in seating?
It was 123.
123, that would be in the body of the resolution. If you want me to make it a condition, I'm happy to do so.
We discussed noise ordinance compliance. I don't know if that's...
So the applicant, of course, will comply with any and all applicable ordinances in place in the Borough of River Edge. That would include the noise ordinance.
Yeah, no problem.
And do you have streetscape? Do you include
I do.
Okay. And that'll be supervised by Mr. Barron's?
Yes.
Okay.
Counsel, does the applicant understand and agree to these conditions?
Yes, she does.
And I see the applicant is not.
She really did a nice job in setting up. We've been to the restaurant, but she's really expended a lot of money improving the school.
What type of food do you sell? Indian. The applicant.
I've read a lot of good reviews. I have not made it there yet, but I'll give you my word I will.
I've eaten there once.
It was really good.
Yeah, everybody.
It's hard to find a good Indian restaurant.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Sarah Killian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Dr. Gerowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Canigo?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons recused himself. Mr. Sedaris?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your.
Congratulations, folks. Always a pleasure, Mr. Soresti. Good to see you.
I got spoiled with Indian food, my wife. Came here,
I think I'm going to, Mr. Costa?
Yes.
I'm gonna adjourn the meeting, and we spoke briefly on the issue that we talked about with the cease and desist letter. We'll go off the record and we'll talk about that, and we'll just give the board a brief update. Well, after we close the meeting. So, no?
What are we not gonna talk about?
Well,
Let's entertain a motion to close.
So made.
Do I have a second?
I
All
have
in
to say
favor?
one thing. My
All
board
opposed?
secretary in West New York has been asking for the